Something we talk about all the time is knowing your camera. So today I'm going to go through the settings and custom buttons that we've changed for the ZV-E1 to get the most out of the camera and efficiently navigate settings while inside an underwater housing. Every environment is different, so these aren't the end-all solution to getting the perfect shot, but it's a good place to start if you've just got the camera. To speed things up, we have these exact settings available to download in the description. That way you can load these settings onto your camera and have it the exact same way that I'm going to set it up in this video. Once downloaded, put the file into this folder on your SD card, then go to Setup, Reset Saved Settings, Load, and then choose ZV-E1 Ike. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do is reset my camera so that it looks exactly like I just took it out of the box. So you'll just set up your language. I'm going to skip all of this. I don't need to do that right now. Don't worry about that. Cool. So hopefully your camera looks something like this. Same settings and all of that. And the first thing that I'm going to do is switch out of intelligent mode and go into manual exposure mode. This way we'll have a few more settings that we can change. So I'm going to hit menu. It's going to bring us to the main menu page. And in the shooting menu, the first page, you'll find your file format. And this is going to be your different codecs, different resolutions, and they each have their own compression rates and resolution sizes. But for 4K, I like to use XAVCS 4K. Movie settings is going to be where you'll pick your frame rate. So for underwater, we'll stick with 60. And then record setting, we want the most information, so we'll stick to 422 10-bit. S&Q settings, don't worry about it. Time-lapse, don't worry about it. Log settings, if you want to shoot log, this will be where you'll turn that on. If you don't know what log is, then don't worry about it. But if you do want it on, I would change your color gamut to sgamut3.cine. And then also make sure to turn this embed LUT file off so that you're not baking in your LUT to your image. Proxy settings, don't worry about it. APS-C shooting, don't worry about it. Lens compensation, don't worry about it. Format, so that this will be where you can format your card. File, if you wanted to have your files come out with a certain naming convention right out of the camera, this would be where you'll set that. Shoot mode, you can change your shoot mode here, but you can also do that in the function menu on the shooting screen as well. So we'll leave it to manual exposure. Silent shutter, we'll leave that. Audio recording, time code. Image stabilization, you can change your stabilization mode here. You can also do that in the function menu. So we'll just leave that on active. And leave the rest. Zoom, we'll leave that alone. Shooting display is where you can put an overlay onto your screen for a few different options, rule of thirds, square grid. So I'm going to leave that as off, but I really like to turn on emphasize record display. That way, when you record, that red box shows up around it versus just the small record button. I really like while I'm in a housing, sometimes it's harder to see just that small record symbol. So if the whole screen turns red around the border, it's a lot easier to know when you're recording. Marker display, kind of the same deal as shooting display, but you can choose different aspect ratios to add the overlay to the screen. So say you're shooting for social media, you can add like a 9:16 overlay so you know exactly where your frame will be when you crop in, but we'll leave that to off. And shooting options, you can just leave this alone. Next menu will be exposure and color. Here you can set your ISO range limit. I'm just going to set it to the entire range, but if you only wanted a certain amount, you can do that here. But also, we're going to kick out of ISO auto and just go straight to 640. All right, next is exposure comp. You can leave that alone. Metering, I shoot an S-Log3. Multi-metering mode has been fine, but there's a few other options that you can pick from, but I'm going to leave it on multi. White balance is super important for underwater photography and videography, so let's just take that right out of auto and go straight down to the custom white balance 1. Color and tone, this will be where you can select some of the built-in LUTs or upload your own. I'm going to change mine, keep mine on S709, which is a popular one. And then this is where you'd be able to import LUTs from your SD card. I'm going to turn off soft skin effect. If maybe it'd be useful topside, but underwater it's just extra processing, and I don't see any benefit to having it on underwater, so we'll turn that off. And zebra display, I like to have my zebras on so that I know when I'm clipping my highlights. And the next menu is your focus menu. So we'll want to have autofocus on. And then these two settings, I like to play around with a lot. So autofocus transition speed will be how fast the camera changes focus from one subject to the other. I don't like it to have to be super fast, so I'll put mine at like 4. Subject shift sensitivity is how sensitive the camera is to new objects coming in. So personally, I don't really like it when it's jumping from subject to subject in the middle of a shot. So I like it to be locked on. So I'm gonna put that all the way down at 1. And we'll leave AF assist off. Focus area, these are your different focus areas. You can change them in the function menu as well, but you can change them here too if you want. I'm just gonna change mine to spot, so that's what I like to use. Focus area limit. Here you just have a few different size options, especially for the spot mode. I'm just gonna turn them all on just to give me the option to have them. And the rest of the stuff can stay the same. Subject recognition. This is really cool in this camera, and the new Sonys, they have their AI autofocus. So we'll want to keep that on. And here is your different options for subjects. You can also change this in the function menu, so don't worry about changing it here. You won't really be locked in, so we'll just keep it on human for now. Target select will allow you to select the subjects that you want. So if for underwater, you might see an airplane, you might see a car and train, but probably not. So we're just gonna keep it on human, animal, bird, and insect. So we'll say okay. And the rest of this stuff can stay the same. Focus assistant, focus map is be kind of confusing if you don't know what you're looking at. So we'll just keep that off. And the rest of the stuff can stay the same. Peaking display. Sometimes I like to have peaking on. It's essentially an overlay on your video to show you what's in focus. It'll give you some little red dots. But I'm going to keep that off for now. You can also change the sensitivity of the dots and the color as well. Nothing in playback and nothing really in network. This would be just if you wanted to connect to your phone, topside or something like that. All right, so in setup, this would be where you can change your area, date, time settings if you didn't do it correctly at the beginning. Reset safe settings is where you could load up the settings that we have available in the description, but also reset your camera if you needed to. All right, and then operation customize. This is where you'll set the custom keys for working inside of an underwater housing. And I'm going to jump straight to video custom keys. So you'll see it's kind of already set up for a bunch of different ones, but we're gonna change all of these so it's a little easier to find some of the settings that you might need to use a lot. So the first one, we're gonna change this to AF on. This way, when you're shooting, you can just point at your subject and then hit the C2 button, and now it's in focus. You'll see those small green bars pop up, and that means your subject is in focus. The next custom key we're going to set is record frame rate, which is right here in the first page and second option, record frame rate. Now that's going to allow us to, once we hit the little trash can button, change our frame rate super quickly. And all you'll have to do is just change your frame rate to match, or your shutter speed to match the frame rate. So we'll keep it on 60. The third option, we're going to change to tracking on toggle. I really like this in conjunction with the center focus area. So if I hit my focus, hit the center button, it's going to start tracking, and then I can compose my shot, and then just hit the center button again to cancel. So focus, start tracking, compose, cancel, and it really works seamlessly with that center focus area. That's why I like that a lot. All right, back to the main menu. And the fourth button we're going to change is in the autofocus menu, subject recognition, and recognition target select. And then here, you can see earlier we unchecked those, so they're not checked. And when you're shooting, you just hit left on the pad and you'll go through all the different options. So if your dive buddy is coming through the shot and you want to get a shot of him, you can switch it to human, and then, pan over to an animal, and you're all set to go. All right, and then the fifth button we're going to choose is the right on the control wheel. We're going to change that to white balance. And this is where it was important to make sure that you're on the custom white balance already, so that right when you hit right on the D-pad, all you have to do is hit right again, set, find your white object, and grab your white balance. So it's all about minimizing the amount of time to get to the setting that you want. So it's really just two buttons, 2 clicks on the control pad, and you're there. All right, and then the last button on the rear is going to be ISO. And again, it's the same principle. So now if you're in ISO, we're at ISO 10,000. But if you wanted to go up, all you'd have to do is hit down on the D-pad and then down to go up. And so say you're at 640, it's just down and then automatically just go straight down. Super quick. All right, so that does it for the rear buttons. The top, I'm not going to change any of these. Side button on the lens, you don't have access to that through the port, so don't worry about that. And then dial wheel, important. So this top dial, I'm going to change that to my aperture. And the scroll wheel, or the control wheel, I'm going to change that to my shutter speed. This way, use the top dial to control my aperture, and control wheel to change my exposure. And I've just kept all of the custom keys for photo mode to follow video mode, so it doesn't change when you go between the two modes. All right, custom key settings, you can leave that alone. All right, so in functions menu settings, this would be where you can add some quick settings to access from the shooting menu. A lot of these things we just set for the custom buttons, so they're not really super applicable, but steady shot's a good one, so you can change your stabilization mode, focus area, stuff like that. but I'm just going to leave it as it is. Different set for still and movies is another great feature. Here I can select settings that I want to stay dependent of each photo or video mode. So if I'm in photo mode, I can have a shutter speed, aperture set, and then when I'm in video mode, I can have a completely different aperture and shutter speed set. So I just check all of these so that they're different when I switch between the modes. Display screen set, just keep all this on, why not? And then record with shutter, definitely turn that on so you don't have to reach to the top of the housing to start recording. You can just use the trigger just like you would taking a photo. Keep that off. Dial customization is kind of the same. And I would keep this on normal. When I got the camera, for whatever reason, it was on reverse and it was really annoying. So normal will just be like any other camera that you've used, or if you haven't used a camera, you don't want to learn it in reverse. So just keep it on normal. And we'll keep the rest of this stuff as it is. Touch operation will be on by default, and you can't use the touch screen through the housing. So I would just turn that off to eliminate any option of that happening. And we'll just keep the rest of that the same. Accessibility, don't worry about that. Monitor, I like to have mine on sunny weather so that while it's in the housing, it's just a little bit brighter and I can see it a bit better. Keep the rest of this as it is. Display option, this would be where you can turn on gamma display assist, but I'm in log, so can't do that. Display LUT, you'll want that to be on so that you can see your LUT, and the rest of this can stay the same. All right, your power settings. Auto monitor off. I like to turn this to about 10 seconds so that if I'm not shooting or I'm not fumbling around with settings, after 10 seconds, the monitor will just kind of go into a sleep mode. And then power save start time, after a minute, the camera will just kind of power down. And then auto power off temp. I always set this to high. Cameras that record 4K, 120, or really any 4K for an extended period of time are prone to heat, and eventually they will turn off. But this setting will allow the camera to just tolerate a little bit more of that heat before turning off. So just set that to high. Sound option, you can leave that alone. USB-C, you can leave that alone. External output, don't worry about it. And setup option, do not worry about it. I hope some of these settings were helpful for you. And like I said before, you can download the settings in the description below, load them on your camera, and they'll be exactly the same as we just set them up. If you have any questions, please comment below or email us at ikelite@ikelite.com.